I should have never taken the midnight shift alone. The forest has a way of making you feel small, like the trees are watching, listening, waiting. And when the radio crackled with a voice I didn't recognize, I knew I wasn't alone. My name's Daniel. I was 28 and working as a park ranger for a small national forest in the northern Cascades, Washington. The park wasn't heavily visited, a handful of hikers each day, mostly weekenders, and a few campers during the summer. I loved it for the solitude, the crisp mountain air, and the quiet thrill of being responsible for a vast stretch of wilderness. The job was simple, or so I thought: patrol trails, check campsites, monitor wildlife, and radio in periodically. The forest was my home from home. My cabin was small, a single room with a wood stove, a cot, and a desk stacked with maps and radios. Out here, the only company I had was the occasional coyote howl or the rustle of leaves in the wind. That winter, I volunteered for the late-night patrol shift. I wanted the experience. The forest at night was beautiful, even eerie, and I liked being the only human in the middle of miles of darkness. It started the second night on patrol. I was walking the trail near Cedar Creek, radio strapped to my chest, flashlight cutting through the fog. The air smelled damp, piney, and cold. I heard it first as a faint snapping of twigs, not animal, not consistent with wind. Slow, deliberate. I stopped, swept my flashlight in every direction. Nothing. The trail was empty. I shrugged it off. Probably a deer. Later that week, it got worse. The radio, which had been quiet except for standard check-ins, started picking up faint static, followed by voices that weren't mine or the other rangers. Whispering voices. I'd hear, "He's here. Don't look. I can see you." At first, I assumed interference, another frequency bleeding over, but the voices weren't random. They seemed directional, as if coming from different parts of the forest depending on where I walked. On night 3, I was patrolling alone near the northern ridge when I saw a light flicker through the trees. Lantern glow, maybe 100 meters away. There shouldn't have been anyone there. The trails were officially closed that night. I called into the radio. "Dispatch, you copy?" Static, then silence. I walked closer. The light vanished. The forest was unnaturally quiet. No wind, no animals, just the crunch of my boots. And then, a knock. A single, sharp thunk on the old wooden signpost marking the trail. I froze, waited. Knock again. 3 knocks this time. I raised my flashlight. Nothing. Only fog and shadows. On night 4, I was deep in the forest, near a rocky outcrop known as Devil's Overlook. The wind was picking up, branches swaying, fog thick like a white wall. My radio crackled suddenly. "Daniel. Daniel. Come here." No call sign, no static, just the voice. Low, urgent, unmistakably human. I thought it was another ranger playing a prank. "Very funny," I muttered. "Where are you?" Silence. Then a branch snapped behind me. I spun around. Mist. Shadows. Nothing. I started walking back toward the cabin. The radio crackled again. "You're not alone." Panic surged. My flashlight flickered. The fog thickened. I could hear movement in the trees. Slow, deliberate steps, circling me. No animal makes that sound. Something was following me. I started running. My boots sank into wet leaves, heart pounding. Every tree looked like it had eyes. The radio went haywire, voices overlapping, distorted. "He sees you. Don't run. Stay." I tripped and hit the ground hard. The radio skidded out of reach. When I grabbed it, the battery icon was full, but the screen showed a single message, glowing red. "Leave or stay forever." I scrabbled to my feet. My flashlight beam caught movement. A figure standing between two trees, barely visible, not fully human, not fully shadowed. It tilted its head, watching, then vanished. I ran blindly, lost in the fog. Hours later, I made it back to the cabin, exhausted, soaked, and trembling. I filed a report, but no one took it seriously. They said the stress of night shifts, exhaustion, and maybe a hallucination. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to. But the radio didn't stop. Every night, static, whispers, the faint echo of footsteps circling my cabin. One night, I picked up a recording on my own device. It was me, breathing, but beneath it, faint whispers. He's inside. He can't escape. I quit the ranger job a month later, left the forest, left Washington. I haven't returned. I've tried therapy and tried rational explanations, but every night I wake up around 2:33 a.m., the same time I first heard the voice, and my phone vibrates. Motion detected, it says. I haven't told anyone the full story. People would think I'm insane. But I have the recordings. I've listened to them over and over. The whispers are clear, not random noise, not interference. Someone, something was watching me. I can't explain it. I just know the forest wasn't empty. Sometimes late at night, I swear I hear a faint static in my apartment, and among it, the same whisper. Daniel. Daniel. Come back.
I used to think night shifts were peaceful. A few hours of quiet, a paycheck, and the hum of fluorescent lights. But after what happened in Building 9, I can't even walk past an empty hallway without hearing her voice again. I'm not even sure what I saw that night was human, or if it ever was. My name's Jordan. Back in 2016, I worked as a security guard for a mid-sized logistics company in Spokane, Washington. I was 28, recently divorced, and trying to rebuild my life, saving up for a new apartment, spending nights alone, eating too many microwave burritos in my car. The company owned several warehouses scattered around the industrial park. The one I was assigned to most often was Building 9, an older, half-abandoned structure they used mainly for record storage. It was built in the late 70s, long before I was born. Cinder block walls, flickering exit signs, and concrete floors that echoed like a tomb. My job was simple. Make rounds every 2 hours, check the locked offices, log any motion alarms, and radio the main desk if something looks off. Easy money, quiet work. At least that's what I thought. The daytime employees always left before 6, and by 7 p.m., it was just me and the hum of the air vents. The place smelled like dust, paper, and that faint chemical tang from the cleaning supplies that used every morning. The fluorescent lights buzzed just loud enough to fill the silence. I'd done the shift dozens of times before. Nothing ever happened. But in early November of that year, something changed.
It started with the intercom. Around 2:15 a.m. one night, I was doing paperwork at the front desk when the building's old PA system crackled to life. You know that sound? A faint pop, a hiss, like someone just keyed a walkie-talkie but didn't say anything. I looked up. The intercom hadn't been used in years, not since they moved most of the staff to Building 2. The wiring had been cut during renovations. Then I heard it. A faint whisper. At first I thought it was static, but as I leaned closer, I swore I could make out a word. Jordan. I froze. No one should have known I was here, much less my name. I tapped the intercom button, but nothing responded. Dead system, no light, no switch. A few seconds later, silence returned. I wrote it off as fatigue.
Night shift hallucinations. The brain plays tricks when you're alone too long. Still, I made my rounds with a flashlight, checking the storage aisles. The deeper I went, the more uneasy I felt. The storage rooms in Building 9 stretched long and narrow. Rows of tall steel shelving loaded with old cardboard boxes and file folders marked from the early 2000s. Some of the labels were faded, written in pen. The air was colder back there, heavy with dust. As I walked between the shelves, I heard something that made my stomach drop. A soft tap, tap, tap behind me, like someone dragging their fingernails along metal. I turned the flashlight toward the sound. Nothing, just boxes. Then I heard it again, closer this time. I swung around fast enough that the beam cut something pale disappearing behind one of the shelves. A shape, maybe, or a trick of the light? I called out, "Hello, who's there?" No response. I radioed to the main security office. "Unit 9 Delta here. I think we might have a trespasser in Building 9. Can you check the cameras for movement?" A pause. Then the dispatcher's voice came through. Copy that, 9 Delta. Building 9's cameras are still down. IT scheduled to replace them next week." Of course they were. I did another sweep. Nothing. No doors open, no windows broken. By the time I returned to the front desk, the intercom had gone silent again. That was night 1.
The second night, it got worse. It was raining, one of those steady northwest drizzles that soaks you without sound. The building was colder than usual. My breath fogged in the air when I walked. Halfway through my shift, the lights in the east wing began to flicker. Not all at once, just the row leading toward the records vault. And then I heard humming. A woman's voice, low, tuneless, echoing faintly through the hall. At first, I thought it was the cleaning crew from the adjacent building. But when I stepped into the east wing, the sound was coming from inside. The melody drifted between the shelves, an old lullaby maybe, the kind you'd hum to a child. "Hello?" I called. No answer, just that humming, soft and broken, like the singer didn't have lungs left to breathe. I followed it, heart pounding. When I turned the corner into the records vault, it stopped. The light steadied. Nothing moved, except on one of the filing cabinets near the back wall, I saw handprints. Small, delicate, smeared into the dust, but the fingers were too long. 5 inches? 6? I can't say exactly, but they weren't human-sized. That's when I realized something. The prints weren't just on the cabinet. They led up the wall. By the 4th night, I'd stopped sleeping during the day. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that intercom static, that voice. I even considered asking to switch buildings, but I needed the hours. That night, I came in early, determined to record anything strange. I brought a small pocket recorder I'd used during training. From 9 p.m. to 1 a.m., nothing happened. I started thinking it was all stress. Then just after 2 a.m., the PA crackled again. "Help." A faint whisper. The same voice. Then the humming started again. This time inside the main hallway, echoing down toward the front desk. I froze. I could hear the footsteps now. Light, bare, moving slowly on the tile. My flashlight beam shook as I lifted it. At the end of the hall stood a figure. Small, pale, wearing what looked like an old hospital gown. Her head was tilted, hair covering her face. "Stop right there," I said, voice trembling. She didn't move. I started backing up toward the security door. Then, in one motion too fast to be real, she turned, not walked, turned, like the world skipped a frame. The next instant, she was 10 feet closer. I could see her now, gray skin, eyes completely white,
mouth open but soundless. I bolted. My radio screamed static as I ran for the exit. The hallway lights flickered violently, strobing the walls like lightning. Behind me, her footsteps grew louder, slapping the tile, ragged and uneven. When I reached the door, the lock jammed. My access card wouldn't scan. I turned around just once, a mistake I'll never forget. She was inches away, face inches from mine, through the glass, and she smiled. Not a grin, a slow, broken pull of the lips, revealing teeth that looked wrong, jagged, wet, too many. The lights exploded. Everything went dark.
When I woke up, it was daylight. The front door was wide open. My radio was dead, and the log sheet showed nothing after 1:57 a.m. The company's regional manager found me slumped at the desk around 8 a.m., disoriented and shaking. They thought I'd passed out or had a seizure. I quit that same day. 2 weeks later, I got a call from another guard who took my spot. He asked if I'd ever heard a woman singing in the building. Said he'd found small handprints on the inside of the vault door. They tore Building 9 down the following spring. But sometimes, when I drive past the empty lot, I swear I can still hear the faint hum of the intercom. Just that same word, distorted through static. Jordan. No one ever found out who or what she was. But sometimes, at 2:15 a.m., when the world is quiet, I still feel her breath behind me, waiting for me to clock in again.
There's this stretch of desert highway in New Mexico where the GPS stops working. The sky feels heavier and the air itself tastes wrong. Truckers talk about it like a curse, a few miles where people go missing without a trace. I never believed those stories until the night I drove through mile marker 313. I'm Daniel Ruiz, a long-haul trucker with 15 years on the road. I've seen just about everything. Snow in July up in Montana, fire tornadoes in California, dust storms that look biblical, but nothing like what happened that night in 2021. I was hauling a load of bottled water from Tucson to Amarillo, an overnight route, easy miles, mostly straight shot along Highway 54. It was just after midnight, middle of nowhere. No towns, no cell service, no lights except my own. Truckers call that stretch the Dead Mile. There's an old rest stop around marker 313, half collapsed, covered in graffiti, long since abandoned. They say you can still see lights in the building sometimes, even though there's no power out there. I had heard the rumors. People disappearing, cars found with the engines running, drivers swearing the road shifted. I laughed it off. Desert heat messes with people's heads. That night, I wasn't laughing for long.
It was close to 2:40 a.m. when my CB radio started crackling. Not static, voices. Doesn't look right. Repeat, doesn't look right. I turned down the volume, figuring it was bleed over from another channel. Then came the knocking. Not on the door, on the inside wall of the cab. 3 slow knocks. Tap, tap, tap. I hit the brakes so hard the load shifted. No one was there, obviously. I even climbed out with a flashlight, checked the trailer, the roof, and the undercarriage. Nothing, just wind, sand, and miles of empty asphalt. When I got back inside, my dashboard clock was flashing 3 a.m., but my phone said 2:42. I brushed it off as a glitch and kept driving. A few miles later, I saw something that made my skin crawl. A car, old, maybe a late 90s sedan, was parked on the shoulder. Hazard lights are blinking. The driver's door opens. I slowed down and rolled to a stop behind it, flashing my hazards. No one inside. No one on the road. Then I noticed something odd. Both headlights were smashed inward, like
they had hit something head-on. But there wasn't a single mark on the bumper. As I walked up, I called out, "Hey, you okay out here?" No answer. Then I saw it. The license plate was covered in ash. Not dust, ash. Like it had been near a fire that burned cold. I should have left. I know that now. But I checked the driver's seat, and there was a wallet on the floor. Inside, Jessica Albright, age 29, from Santa Fe. Photos of a smiling woman, a dog, and family pictures. The weird part? The ID expired in 2009. The wallet looked brand new. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, crunching gravel, circling behind me. I spun around with the flashlight. Nothing. Just the sound of wind passing through the desert. Then, faintly, someone whispered my name. Daniel. It was so close, I felt the breath hit my ear. I bolted back to the truck and slammed the door. As I floored it down the highway, the GPS suddenly rebooted itself, but the screen didn't show the route anymore. It was just a black background with one word in white text. Turn around. By now, every hair on my body was standing up. I was going 80 down a dark highway, headlights cutting through dust, trying to ignore the pounding in my chest. Then, out of nowhere, I saw another mile marker. 313. That didn't make sense. I'd already passed it 10 minutes ago. I slowed down, confused. Maybe I'd miscounted.
A few minutes later, another one. Same marker, 313. Bent metal, bullet holes, the same sticker of a smiley face peeling off the post. And then I realized the radio was whispering again. Turn around. She's not supposed to be here. Help me, please. Voices overlapping, male, female, young, old, all jumbled and desperate. I turned the radio off. It didn't stop. That's when I saw her, standing on the shoulder, the woman from the ID photo. Same face, same brown jacket. Just standing there, motionless, hair whipping in the wind. I hit the brakes, heart slamming against my ribs. She raised her hand, palm out, as if to flag me down. Her eyes looked wrong, too dark, too wide, reflecting no light at all. I should have kept driving.
But something, maybe guilt, maybe curiosity, made me roll the window down just an inch. "Are you okay?" I shouted. Her head tilted slightly. Then her lips moved, barely, forming words I couldn't hear. I opened the window a bit more, and that's when she screamed. Not a human scream, a sound like metal tearing mixed with static and feedback, the kind of noise that hurts your teeth. Every light in the cab flickered and the engine died instantly. For a split second, she was right outside my door, face against the glass, eyes black as oil, mouth wide open. Then, gone. The lights returned. The radio was silent, and the dashboard clock read 4:12 a.m. But according to the mileage, I hadn't moved in over an hour.
I drove straight to Amarillo, didn't stop once. When I pulled into the depot, my dispatcher stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. "Where the hell have you been?" he said. "You were supposed to check in at 3. I showed him my logs. They were blank between 2:40 and 4:15. GPS data, missing. No signal, no coordinates, no route history. The company even checked the black box later. Same thing. A 1-hour window of nothing. I tried to find out who Jessica Albright was, but her records didn't make sense either. She'd been reported missing in 2009, after her car was found abandoned near mile marker 313. Same make, same color, same plate number. I still drive that route sometimes. And every time I pass marker 313, my radio cuts out, the air turns cold, and for just a second, I see someone standing on the shoulder, waiting for me to stop.
These stories, whether of ghosts, stalkers, or places that defy explanation, all share one thing in common. They started as normal nights. Ordinary people doing ordinary things. That's what makes real horror so unsettling. It doesn't need monsters or rituals or haunted houses. It just needs one shift, one hallway, one wrong turn, and the quiet realization that you're not alone.